Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Corporate Cowboys podcast. My name is Alex. I'm your host. Today's date is Tuesday, August 2023. If you're not familiar with this podcast, the Corporate Cowboys are oriented toward professional development. We are consultants for professionals. We can be legal consultants, but I'm going to give you the disclaimer up front. Anything you hear come across these audio waves or anything that is posted or distributed across our various platforms and social media accounts and profiles, anything that you see, hear, or listen to on our part, none of it is legal advice to you. Unless you've retained us in some capacity and we are working for you, we work for no one. We're in the business, of better business at that. So we strive to be consummate professionals. And as consummate professionals, we want to deal with other like-minded individuals. We want to create more corporate cowboys and inculcate in those individuals that we associate with the values. Instill in them those values of consummate professionalism. So, we'll answer questions in a rather general manner. We'll give you an inside look on what the organization, the infrastructure looks like when consulting with yourself. And we'll do it through the lens of a hypothetical, right? We take these questions from online. More often than not, they're from Reddit. So, because we have limited information, we don't have this hypothetical client in front of us to be asking them questions. But to make a long story short, you want to treat this podcast like the friend that you don't have, like the friend you don't have to come to and talk about business, talk about a career, talk about your livelihood and the moves you ought to make to improve on it, to grow, to expand, to be more productive, to become stronger, more influential, inside or outside of corporate, in your personal life, because the two bleed into one another, the personal and the professional, the public and the private. They influence one another. Today's question is coming from r/career guidance. And they're asking here, they work from home, making 6 figures due to a recent promotion. They only have about 10 hours a week of work to do. Damn, sounds like a rather cushy job. If you have 10 hours of work to do a week, you get it done within 10 hours, then what you've got approximately 30 hours a week to work on yourself or to plot and plan within corporate, to make moves within your organization. Man, that is a nice place to be in. But the question here is, I'm paranoid. It's not even a question. It's a sentence with a question mark at the end. I'm paranoid that I'm going to be bagged. How they give it that little upward inflection. I'm paranoid that I'm going to be bagged. I only have about 10 hours of work, 10 hours a week of work to do. I'm paranoid that I'm going to be bagged. So essentially the question is, should they be what? Paranoid? Should they be working toward something Should they be preparing for the worst? And I guess in their world, because if they're paranoid about this, that might be the worst thing to happen to them. But a corporate cowboy, what would a corporate cowboy do? How would a corporate cowboy view this situation? Is that just additional opportunity? Would you be paranoid about being let go? Not at all. Because you've only got 10 hours of work to do every week. And the other 30 or however many it is that you might have to log and report to your supervisor, you have that added time to create additional value, if not for your organization, then for yourself, which in turn will benefit the organization because of your continued professional development. You becoming a better professional never hurts. You becoming a more virtuous, a more integral, a more reliable, more dependable professional never hurts. Neither yourself, your livelihood, or your career with the organization. So let me start reading the body here a bit. So there's some rumbling. There's some butterflies hatching, springing from what? A cocoon? Doesn't necessarily mean that they've embarked on any personal growth, right? So let's read this body a bit. Find out what they tell us and whether or not we can make any reasonable inferences or come up with some appropriate questions to ask if we had the hypothetical client in front of us. They write, or they start with, this has been going on for almost 7 months. Okay, so relevant to the title, making those 6 figures working from home due to a recent promotion. I mean, it's kind of up in the air whether or not they would knock you down or cut you out after a promotion. It's possible. Shit, anything is possible in corporate. And I've said time and time again, it's been an overarching theme to the podcast is that everyone is entry level forever. No one is necessarily guaranteed a position for life in corporate, right? Because you're dealing not only with business, but you're dealing with politics. I mean, business will take care of itself. You take care of business, and business will necessarily take care of itself. But you've got that human element, that political component, right? And as much as folks claim to hate the office politics, you don't see people rebelling against it often. You don't see people going against the grain of this quote unquote office politics that they so claim to hate. But learning to navigate it, learning to navigate it, to work with it instead of being subordinated to it, instead of working for it, will put you on a level of professionalism that's unparalleled with anyone else. So that's essentially what we're striving for as a corporate cowboy. Not necessarily have to answer to anyone else, but you're in a league of professionals of your own caliber, where you can deal directly with corporations and not have to rely on a manager, not have to rely on a what's the term called? On a representative, on a shop representative, right? So you don't need anybody putting in the work for you if you are capable, willing, and able of doing it yourself. So they write, this has been going on for almost 7 months. I don't have shit to do. and spend most days napping or sleeping off a hangover. Wow. I attend all calls and appear available, but I keep getting this nagging feeling that I will be found out. Well, that's just called tuition, and your tuition knows that you're fucking up. If you're sleeping all day and nursing a hangover, it means that you're a piece of shit and not building on yourself, right? If those are the only things you're doing, right? If we had the hypothetical client in front of us, we would ask them how else they fill their day. What else do they do with the time available that they have from work, right? If it's only taking shooters and dozing off, then yeah, we could objectively say that they are a piece of shit. But if they're working, if they're moonlighting on the side, they have a side hustle, some kind of gig that they do, or they're attending an online course of some kind, or taking on an independent study that their work, that their company is just not privy to, right? Because they're building themselves in secret, in private, then we might argue that they're not a piece of shit in reality, and that they're actually kind of smart because they're double dipping on the time available that they have from work and necessarily getting paid for it. They're right. Basically, I cannot do this job due to data integrity issues. I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Okay, but I keep getting this nagging feeling that I will be found out. Basically, I cannot do this job due to data integrity issues. Today, I offered my boss to step in for another colleague on maternity leave and handle her work. Well, because I need things to do to keep me disciplined. Not sure if I should have just kept riding the wave, but I'm getting kind of paranoid now. I have 6 years experience, and due to a restructure, I was given a job with my parent company at a great raise. But it just seems like a shit show that is so disorganized. I've been keeping a low profile because, well, I figured at first this is great. I basically work 2 days a week. Let me just interject real quick here, is that their writing structure, I don't know if this is coming across, if this is translating, but their writing structure also kind of reads like they haven't been sharpening any skill set or honing their ability to write even. If they work from home, you would think that the primary method of communication is going to be either writing, or, I mean, it could also be some type of virtual meeting like a Zoom or a Google Meet or a Teams of some kind, right? But the writing here, they're not abysmal, but it is reflective of the fact that they're sitting around. The way that they're using well because, and because well, and well because and but well because, kinda well because. So they're right now, not sure if I should have just kept riding the wave, but I'm getting kind of paranoid now. I have 6 years experience, and due to a restructure, I was given a job with my parent company at a great raise. But it just seems like a shit show that is so disorganized. I've been keeping a low profile because, well, I figured at first this is great. I basically work 2 days a week. But I just had the nagging feeling that I need to speak up, so I did. It's just been a complete shit show after mass layoffs this year. Nobody responds to me, even if I try to call them. We work in different areas of the country, so I can't just go to the office and ask in person. Their last paragraph here, they write, just not sure what to do at this point. I had an hour talk with a colleague today, and she is feeling the same thing. I wasn't too honest. I didn't mention how little I have to do, but she mentioned to me she's been doing managerial work, was denied a promotion, and asked me if I got a promotion with my raise. I was honest and said, yeah, I had to offer to cover another division because I can't do my job in hours. So there is some background information that we need, right? Because this hypothetical client writes as if we already know what's taking place within their organization. So we would need to fill out, get a little better picture, a clearer picture of the organizational chart, if you will, and how the hierarchical structure actually works and interacts within this organization. Otherwise, I mean, we don't really know who manages who manages what. Though the hypothetical client does tell us that there have been mass layoffs this year. For me, just off top, just off the dome, just a knee-jerk reaction is that you probably shouldn't worry, right? This is the third quarter. Is it the third quarter? I think we have another quarter. Well, the third quarter just began, I suppose, right? No, will begin. I'm thinking of thirds. So, but we're still in, yeah, we're in the third quarter, and in the fourth quarter, you may see another light cycle of layoffs. It's possible. It is possible. So it's not like they're in the clear because the organization experienced layoffs and they somehow survived it, right? Now that they're growing paranoid, to me, that tells me that they should be kicking something into gear, something else into gear. And more often than not, something that will not hurt you, but will actually help you in your work is going to be self-education, independent study, something that will improve and build on your skills as a professional and as a manager, apparently, because they're working with a colleague who was in a similar position to them. Apparently, what is it, 4, 5, 6 months ago, when our hypothetical client was promoted and they were denied a promotion and they were denied a raise, right? So because the hypothetical client was able to benefit from both a promotion and a raise, it is somewhat logical for a manager to have to do less legwork, less actual technical work, and more managerial work, more work of the reporting kind, more work of like the disciplinary kind, more work of the motivational kind. Right? I mean, in no particular order, but a manager should be competent in all those areas. So the fact that they are not taking it upon themselves or not taking this promotion seriously, to me tells me that they're not in immediate danger of getting cut, but they do open the door to the possibility that a higher up, a superior to themselves, will see that the ticker has not moved on this hypothetical client. And even though corporate, more often than not, claims to want managers, claims to want the status quo, what they want is improvement over time, no matter what. So if you're able to provide it to them, they would be more willing to hear you out and to keep you employed. Otherwise, you're looking at the possibility of getting let go, the next round of layoffs, which is not something people want, right? I mean, far be it for me to advise this hypothetical client to reach out and ask for more work. I feel like that raises more questions than provides answers, right? I think it brings on additional scrutiny. You want to work to the letter. You want to work to the letter. If you're not, well, you want to satisfy your employment duties, your obligations as they appear in your contract, your employment agreement, right? So you're not necessarily only working to the letter, but you want to build yourself. You want to build your reputation. You want to build your skill set. You want to build out your capabilities so that your effectiveness increases with time and doesn't just remain the same, remain stagnant, remain unchanged. Because change, especially positive change, is never a bad thing. But it is a little bit more work. It's the type of work that your manager won't assign you. Few, very rare that a manager will assign you work to develop yourself professionally. That type of move comes from self-initiation by you, the professional, taking the initiative to become better. And that improvement later transfers to the organization, whether you choose to do it or not. It happens almost subconsciously. As you become better, your work demonstrates it, your work shows it. And as your work product gets better, work relations also improve. And that's what we're striving for at the end of the day. I don't know if you're applying to another job, how deeply rooted is this paranoia that you'll be let go? But if you're not applying for work outside, consider it. Maybe you want to jump ship. Maybe the responsibilities that you're taking on right now simply aren't satisfying you. I mean, if you have time, if you have the motivation to go out and get drunk weekly to be able to nurse your hangover, to me, that tells me that you're bored, that you're unfulfilled, that you're not realizing your potential as a professional. Now, that might be an oversight by your manager for not following up with you. But like I said, it is rare. Very few and far in between will a manager care about the leadership potential and the leadership development in their subordinates. I mean, don't necessarily rely on my opinion that it's a matter of ego and politics, because it's in the same vein as training your replacement, right? Where you're kept on just long enough to train your replacement and then you're let go. But I've only had one or two, I could count them on my hand. I could count them on one hand, the number of managers who positively cared about my development and actually told me that they are willing to let me stand on their shoulders, but not walk on their back, right? Don't step on their back, don't stab them in the back, but they'll give me the hand up. They will give me the hand up because they see that I'm an individual with drive, that I'm a professional on a mission. And they want to help. They want to assist me in some way. And the best way is going to be the hand up. It's creating that connection, arranging for a sit down between managers. Let me read one or two comments here, and I will give my take on them. Sometimes these comments are good, sometimes these comments are meh, because, it's Reddit. Reddit tends to skew in certain ways, depending on the users. So, the first comment here says, save as much as you can if you really have a gut feeling about being bagged. Are you sure you're not having imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome, I think everyone has a sense of imposter syndrome. I think it's cute that they've now been able to codify, now been able to isolate, compartmentalize this concept of imposter syndrome. In actuality, you think back to when you were a child, growing into your consciousness, becoming aware of your self, identifying yourself as a person, as a professional, right? And you grow into an adult and you realize that even adults are necessarily imposters, right? We grow with those past understandings, with a background and knowledge that, for the most part, we all tend to share. Now, nobody wants to get called out and say they don't know what they're talking about, but generally, adults are still growing. Legal adults are still growing. Some may have the mind of an adolescent. Some may never grow out of being a petty piece of shit like they might have been as an adolescent. But that doesn't mean that their actions don't have consequences just the same. And they've got to face the repercussions as they're dealt out. Imposter syndrome in this context, I think, really is something internal, and it can be regulated and it can be mitigated. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't exist and claim it not to be a factor, but I'm also not going to but I will discount it. I will discount it to the extent that a person like our hypothetical client in this situation is aware, is cognizant of the fact that their compensation and their work duties, their obligations, even though there is a disconnect in their mind, it doesn't mean that they're not worth that amount of money, right? It's just that the time commitment to them seems unreal. And for me, at least, they're not utilizing all the time that they have available to them. So I can definitely see why imposter syndrome may be called into question, because they maybe feel undeserving of the amount of money that they make, given this promotion that they were just given, and the amount of hours that they have to work every week. It seems unreal to some, and it seems unreal to this hypothetical client. I think the only area with slack that they could afford to pick up is going to be development, always development. Investing in yourself, building yourself personally, professionally, never hurts, ever. It makes you better. It makes you better at business. It makes you better at networking. It makes you better at marketing. It makes you better at confronting challenges and resolving issues in daily life, be it personal or professional. So it's definitely not a bad place to start. I mean, this person is saying, this first commenter is saying to save as much money as they can. I mean, if they're not already saving, if they're not already budgeting, I mean, if they're getting wasted every week, having to nurse a hangover, I mean, they're already making some rather poor decisions and poor choices. And that might be a habit of theirs. But if they're saving money, let them spend it how they please. Let them spend it how they wish. Otherwise, yeah, they should be saving the money in case late year layoffs come rolling around before the holidays. But do not stop improving on yourself. The moment you stop is when you become complacent and you lose your edge. Yeah, well-rounded professionals are okay. But those professionals that want to cut through the noise and set themselves apart as a professional worth their weight, they're going to invest heavily in their future. That is by way of skills, abilities, talent, practice, training, education, those things that will edify you and make you not only a better person, but a capable, competent, consummate professional.